Good morning. Welcome to the Lair. We run these every Sunday in the Lair, obviously in Jirasan chat. So if you guys are listening to this on our YouTube page or you guys are listening to the recording, just know every Sunday, 6 a.m. EST, we will always be giving an update once a week with what's going on in Jirasan, what's being worked on, and just sometimes just what's going on in Web3. So good morning. I hope everybody had a good week. Last week, we discussed trust and we discussed some of the things that we've built as a team. For the past couple years, we've fallen short with creating the trust that's needed between the team and between the community. So last week I wanted to highlight a lot of the things that our team has actually already built. And the reason why I wanted to highlight that last week is because I wanted to set the stage and set the standard when it comes to understanding that we do have a team here that's actually working. We do have a team that is working strictly focused on community development. A lot of changes obviously have happened in the past couple years. Today, I'm officially saying we're past all that. For the past year, I've worked with a new group under the tutelage of Jamie. Did a phenomenal job getting us to a point to where we feel confident with who we have to build what we see as the future of Jirasan's community, how we communicate, things that are open and available to us as a group. You know, when I first started, this community was one of three. You know, you could find yourself in almost three sections as a type of holder. Obviously, we still have, you know, heavy whales who are always looking for investment opportunities. I think that's something that has driven a lot of people to Web3. It's driven a lot of people to different NFT projects. And that is obviously something that still keeps a lot of people around. So those opportunities will still be around and available to us as we move forward. As this is kind of that 1 year mark for myself and for Vischa, when we got officially given the mod titles, which obviously has been a title that is a lot less explanation wise. It's a lot less than what I've been doing. It's a lot less than what some of us have been doing. You know, this has turned into a very efficient group under Jamie's tutelage. So I got to give him a lot of credit for that. You know, it took a lot of trust. I think the first couple months that I joined and Jamie made major changes on the back end, you know, it took us a few to really get comfortable with each other, just to be able to communicate on a everyday trusting basis. You know, myself and Jamie would go back and forth on just a lot of different ideology, a lot of different thought process, and just the way that we think and the way that we look at things from an individual standpoint, and why we looked at it as a from a vision standpoint for the community. And you know, we went through a lot of learning for the past year. And about 2 months ago, Jamie made a decision to finalize and to reevaluate everything as far as from an owner standpoint. So we had to respect his decision. We did minimize the team as best we can, to really save on part of our runway as a team. But he also after he made these changes, the first thing he did was kind of set the expectation as far as what he expects to see from the group that's here, why he believes in the team, why he's kept, um, the individuals that he's kept, and kind of what his goal was going forward. Jamie's put a lot of trust in me as far as being able to put my thought process in when it comes to the back end things with our team, but also given me the ability for this past year to try and establish the proper relationship that I think our community needs with the team as well. So I've worked very hard on making sure that our environment and that our atmosphere as holders is what it should be from my perspective, as far as being a Web3 community, and that's how we obviously originated, right? Like I wouldn't have met anybody here if it wasn't for the Lair, and so on and so on. You can say this about every community. This is the biggest benefit when it comes to why I believe, Web3 will advance in its way of communications, networks, partnerships. We've already, as I've said last week, we've seen this in Web3, and this was a major crossroad for us, right? Are you building a community for the hopes of making everybody money? Are you building a community for the hopes of creating a more steady flow of networking for the individuals that join? Are you creating a community, around the game that you may building, whatever, so on and so on, all these different ideas and these different visions that thousands of other individuals have tried, attempted, some still working on, some being successful, depending on what you consider success, and some not even around anymore, right? Since at least since our start date back in 2021. So Jamie made a lot of changes, and I think as a team, right, we had to kind of look in the mirror, and at that point is when we understood that in order for us to earn the trust of our community, we have to start executing on accomplishing our vision on things that we feel are important. So that's why last week was geared around what we have kind of started building as far as what's accomplished already. It's not the end all be all with the things that we have started to create, but it should show you guys the more that you guys are around, Jiras, or the more that you're in the Lair, it should show you guys that our thought process and our vision aligns a lot more with Web3 being a subculture for how we network going forward. Um, we've seen so many people try to build and not be successful, right? I think you're more the percentage of you failing trying to do something in Web3 is, almost 99%, 0.99%. If we wanted to really calculate successful communities currently at the moment, whether you gauge that by floor price, whether you gauge that by um, community morale, we wanted to make sure that we're clear that our vision is that Web3 is the networking cycle that is going to overtake, these country club style communities, right? That have been going on for years. I have neighbors that I live with that pay 10, 20,000. Um, it's a networking fee is really what it is to join certain clubs, certain communities, IRL, right? And obviously, as I was explaining earlier, when you first started in Jirasan, this was really a three-tiered type of environment. Investors, I didn't finish on that thought process, but I will now. Investors, collectors, right? And then you have kind of like this degen section, which is really what drives the liquidity in Web3. And I say that because investors are looking for something more concrete. They're looking for a blueprint that they can read, go over, understand starting, understand ending point when it comes to funds, when it comes to vision from team. And as I've gone through, and kind of done my homework on the back end, and I spent the last year, some of you may know from just our regular conversations, but I spent our last year going into other discords, right? Because I wanted to understand why are we so disconnected as a group. Um, I'm one of the few, and I know this for a fact, I'm one of the few that got to experience the true peak of being a Jira in our community. Not being a whale, not being a degen, but being a collector and a believer in networking and believing that um, action, right, and that type of leadership um, leads to a blueprint in a sense, right? I was listening to a podcast on my drive to Pennsylvania yesterday, actually. Yeah, I had a 5 hour drive from where I live to my son's national tournament or actually world tournament for his ninja competition that, he's been working really hard to get into for the past 3 years. He finally got in, and he's got a whole week. So on the drive over here, I was listening to a podcast, actually by Gary Vee. And if the moment that I started listening to, I said, "Wow, this is really what I think I needed to hear," because I do obviously talk a lot. Like if you know me, you know I love to talk, right? It's been my way of breaking barriers. I'm often the icebreaker in a lot of on a lot of new teams, right? When, like I said, what I was explaining earlier with just um, when we started this whole change with Jira's team and kind of Jamie taking leadership and doing certain things on his vision. We started, and I was definitely the icebreaker, right? And you take that for what it is. Um, we went back and forth, and this is not a bad thing. This is not a negative thing. It is how good teams get to a point where you trust one another, and that's being able to speak your mind. And so I fell into this category as a holder, and I have experienced what I would call this peak uh, season for Jiras. Right, everything just happened to be clicking at the time. Our whales were looking and had opportunities to create a little bit of extra income for themselves. Collectors were holding a strong floor, and Degens were around to pump liquidity, right? And it was something that in this process I just became more in awe in some of these opportunities that were coming my way. I'm not gonna name, all the whales. I think you guys have probably heard me repeat these names, but being able to be on a vacation with my family and one of our whales sending me 2.5 ETH to make sure that I had liquidity in case something happened. Um, Being able to fund and manage a community initiative champion program that we ran for over a year. You know, these opportunities and connections and the structure of how these things were built were built because of how our community was structured. And because I went through that whole experience, sometimes when a lot of our holders or just a lot of people in Web3, they get into this, negative sentiment when it's been 2 years and they haven't made a single dollar, or they haven't made a new friend. Sometimes that's a big difference on how somebody views Web3, believe it or not. But a lot of those scenarios really were possible just because of the structure that our original founders came up with. That's Jamie and that's Sean too. Um, and today's meeting, I wanted to just touch on uh, what the expectation from you guys should be, and whose leadership you guys should be following. And I wanted to have this one-on-one, not on the first, excuse me, not on the first, real AMA that we wanted to structure, because I felt that if we started it like that, it's the next question is, well, what have you guys done lately, right? So let me just reiterate: we want to be a community that opens doors for our investors, but the people coming in here should understand that we want to be the best networking hub in Web3 first, right? We do want to gain and we do want to earn the trust back from all of our holders, still holding, the people that still believe, the people that are doubting. We want to show you guys that we're here working, that we're um, doing our due diligence to always keep us, ahead of the curve when it comes to opportunities. And networking it's not something you can really just put in one box. Um, it comes in a few different forms, and believe it or not, you're always networking as an individual, whether you're representing yourself at work, at school, on a team, playing a sport, you know, whatever it is, you're always representing something, someone, some community, some entity, and you just can never escape that, right? And why do I say that and not sell you guys on us wanting to be, you know, the team that can make you the most money? Um, as I've landscaped over the past year, I have to say there are very slim communities that I'm impressed with in a way that aligns with how I see things needing to be in Web3. Um, I can start by one of our holders, who obviously he's an OG, I think, for for a lot of us. But as I ciphered through all these communities, I said, all right, well, man, everybody wants to make money, but I go into every single community and there's never a real actual blueprint. There's never a real white paper on how we make this or how we make that. I mean, the typical airdrop, right? After we mint, we make some funds, we give some percentage back to the community, some way, somehow, through an airdrop, whatever. Those are good, but they're not sustainable, right? Like, um, first example I can use is Nifty Alpha, right? With Guppy and obviously Rainby being two, Guppy being the founder, but Guppy and Rainby really being the staples for who it is that you see, or who you think of when you think of Nifty, right? Um, and the reason why I can why I can say that about that group and that community is that everybody wants to have a system that they've built that allows self-efficiency. Um, and it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And over the years, Guppy's really one of the very few guys that really are under the alpha, badge when it comes to what their community expects or and stuff like that. But it also, if you realize, those things also teeter to networking, right? Um, but Guppy's one of the few that had a self-efficient system. I'm not gonna go into every fucking detail about why I can say that. I'm just giving you guys what it is, right? Um, who's another community that I think fell under, um, a green check. And not saying that if you didn't fall in a green check, like you're a bad community. I'm just saying things that I've felt I needed to feel, um, as I'm in that community, paying attention, reading through chat, seeing communication, seeing, where people are not happy, et cetera. So, um, one of the other ones that I went into that made a very strong impact was actually Funkari. Um, and as we discuss networking and we discuss us wanting to be that expectation for our community, right? Where people can come in here and understand that there's always some type of opportunity that's flowing. May not be every single day, every single year. We are able to brag about $1 million connection that or networking opportunity that turned into $1 million connection. Um, but there's so many different levels to where individuals are at that sometimes networking is joining our community, meeting somebody that's done what you want to do, and getting the ability to discuss and to pick their brain and to learn from those people that are willing to share that information as well, right? Um, but TMA was actually, man, I left, I didn't leave his Discord. I'm actually still in the Discord, but I had the opportunity to tag in there, and it started with his leadership, and it started with him taking this initiative of giving me the chance to just be in their main holder chat for a week. Right? It's very small. It's very simple. It's nothing that we ever did here at Jirasan. You needed to buy that that Gen 1. It was part of our pride. As Gen 1 holders, right? Um, but him taking this initiative was just a small step, right? Because I'm the type of individual I think you should be taking these initiatives, not in that sense, but in a sense of you want to be welcoming to anybody that's wants to learn about what you're doing or what your atmosphere is. Um, is it beneficial if they spend 30 minutes a day in your server? They make sure they visit once a week, or they make sure they show up to your weekly spaces. Okay. Um, you want to make sure that these guys have the opportunity to see that, right? And my experience there was something that I give a lot of praise to, even to this day. And so I spent the last year going through different communities, and as I did my homework, and there's one question that always came back up, and that was, where's the money blueprint? Everything is just robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? So one of the biggest things that I discuss with our team is recreating and rewriting the new narrative of who we are as a team, what our vision is as a team. And it is different than the previous leadership's vision. Now, going forward, those opportunities that our previous team worked on, I will make sure I bring those opportunities to you guys. Um, I understand, speaking with a lot of our holders, that a lot of, like I said, you could originally our community, you can break it down into almost three sectors as far as type of holders, and that's when we started in 2021 and grew and continued on our path on where we are, where we are today. So I understood that that fire is never going to be watered down, right? And I also understand that guys like myself, um, somebody who was working for Jirasan's community for free for almost 3 years, again funding our own program that we were giving back, utilizing the tutelage from a lot of our you know um, wise holders that we have in here, um, and getting the opportunity from a lot of our whales to make this vision happen where it could work. Um, I understood that we have to have those investors and we need that fire to be lit. So as the previous months were kind of going down and I understood that our community is missing one key factor, and that's somebody who is actually in charge and handling everything and has the ability to make decisions that impact our community. Our community felt like we didn't have that. Um, and that falls on a communication issue, right? And I'm the communications guy. So I had to really like accept that I wasn't doing a good job with that and reevaluate how I wanted to communicate things to you guys in a way that you guys understand and you guys trust and you guys have the ability to decide to support or not to support, right? And a lot of you guys have made that decision over the years. That's why I have, um, the type of relationships that I have, and a lot of friendships that are second to none, really, even in IRL life. Like there's a few of you guys that I speak to that know a lot about me that people I deal with every day have no idea. So um, those opportunities, I will be working on making sure they're still available to you guys whenever those opportunities come. Take that for what it is. The reason why I'm explaining it like that is because you guys listening to this now should understand that the vision that we're putting forth and that we're working towards now is something that I've had a big input on. Our whole team has had hours and hours of conversations. Um, and we are at a point where now we understand that somebody has to actually step up and be the one to put the final thumbprint on things that we're working on. And also, everybody else that doesn't know Jirasan has to have somebody that they can go to or that they can look up and research and talk to, or be able to follow, maybe on a platform that they understand when we speak or when we say something, it matters for our community, so they should pay attention. And that is the same with even our holders, right? And we didn't have that for a little bit. So this was a heavy topic for the past 3 months. So, this led to us making sure we executed on FOMO Cup, right? So FOMO Cup for us was something that was the first stepping stone where we can show not only our community but Web3 that we can build and we can execute on an idea that is not only fun, creative, but it opens an opportunity for a lot of people to connect and to play, right, for this particular um, platform that we built. And it's a prediction market platform. We built it around the full um, around FIFA's World Cup, and that's where FOMO Cup kind of came to play, and we executed on it. We didn't measure this off of the normal metrics that most platforms are measuring things off of when it comes to a lot of people build things for the simple thought that, all right, we're gonna generate revenue with this platform, right? That wasn't, to be honest, that wasn't our intention at all. Right. And I think many of you guys who have played probably know that we injected 2 ETH into the pot. We allowed this opportunity for anybody that had a smart wallet to be able to play. We have started working with and sending opportunities to our local builders for guys within here or within the Jirasan community who are running, managing, building, creating their own communities. We wanted to make sure we took care of those guys that had interest in getting their communities the ability to also, join in on this fund. So part of the 2 ETH that we injected was um, to cover tickets for these communities. So we were able to do that. We executed on that, and the metrics that we're measuring are about as close to 100% to goal that you can possibly be, right? And we did everything organic. We didn't pay any calls. We didn't pay any marketing teams. We literally just said we want to see where we're really at as as a team, and where our visibility is, right? And I think to set proper goals, you have to be honest with yourself as a team. And that means you have to self reflect. That means that you have to take what is as what it is. And you can't set like these unrealistic expectations because you'll never build, right? Like if I just say, man, I want our floor price to be 1 ETH tomorrow after this AMA, that's it's not a realistic goal. So I'm happy that the metrics that we decided to measure this campaign on, um, we actually, I think we were on the money with the conversations that we had as a team, just being real with each other. So um, it's a success. FOMO Cup was a success. Um, there are a few things that we still have the opportunity to do a little bit better at for the final week. But at this point, what I told the guys is that what we wanted to see, we seen, right? And that gives us a little bit more motivation to continue to build, right? And what we kind of expected happened, right? That gives us the ability to be more confident and more prudent with who we connect with, how we connect, and who we deliver opportunities to on the outside, right? Which fall into a networking category. Um, and these these conversations and this stepping stone for us was huge. Um, and last AMA, obviously, part of the structure. So I want you guys leaving this AMA understanding this, right? Um, I will be handling everything on the back end from team standpoint to treasury standpoint to partnership standpoint, networking, however you want to put it. I am the guy, okay? Somebody has a question about Jirasan, send them to Mastersan. Somebody wants to know how they can buy a Jirasan, send them to Mastersan. Somebody wants to have the opportunity to pitch their product to our community, send them to Mastersan. Okay. I need to take ownership in the comms department. Jamie took a big step his choice, okay, because you know, I have to accept reality when it comes to treasury, right? So it put a little bit more weight on my shoulders, but nothing that I can't handle, honestly. But when he made the decision to finalize his last cut, we lost zero cool and G. And that was tough. Even the process for that was tough. Um, but those are two guys, right, that I spent almost a year with, going back and forth, learning, discussing, disagreeing with. Um, and I appreciate that tutelage that a lot of those guys, that those two guys, brought to the table. But Jamie felt going forward, um, he needed to make the best decision when it comes to saving what we can. And he wanted to emphasize that he made that decision because he's going to put the pressure on our current team to execute and to stop creating barriers for ourselves and to have the confidence to continue as a team. And he felt that in order to do that, he had to make a final cut, which he felt put us in the best position. Um, but now that we're here, the point is that I have to lead the way that he sees it, right? And with the expectations that he has, I wasn't doing a good enough job, and we can say that, like, I'm the one that is always in chat. It's my job. And that's weird to say that because that's not why I'm always spending time in there. Um, if anything, it's more difficult now to spend that one-on-one time that I have done for so many years because of all the expectations and me having to accept what is and to really be able to say next year at this time, I need to be able to say, I maximized every fucking opportunity that came across the board for Jirasan. And that's not just me creating partnerships, right? That is, did we manage ourselves as a team? Did we execute on what we needed to? Did we hit our time goals to complete, to know if something is good or bad, and I just wasn't owning that, right? I think we fell more into like, well, we're a team. Like, whose vision are we following? And a lot of these conversations that we have on the back end, when I look at it from a bird's eye view, Jamie was always giving me that platform. I just wasn't owning it, and yeah, that's changed, right? So you guys can see that now it's week 2. I said every Sunday we're going to be having an AMA to get you guys in the know, understanding what is. Um, this is week 2. We've done it. Week 1, we have gone over what we built. Week 2, I am making the statement that going forward, everything on the back end that happens with Jirasan, I will be a part of. From decision making to building the treasury, to creating these partnerships. That's my job. Um, and I want you guys to trust me on understanding that you guys have somebody that is working 100%. No, I am not the founder. I do not want the founder role. I'm not coming to take a founder role. I've explained both to Jamie and both to Sean that you guys originated this, and the way that I am and how I've grown up and just you know my internal mechanics. Um, it was never my intention to come in here and say, this is a CTO. No, I'm coming in as a holder who experienced the peak of the peak for Jirasan, who still sees that these people are still fucking here, just waiting for something to see that they believe in it, that they trust enough to give, these opportunities to the whole as a community, right? And um, two things I want you guys to leave with before I end this space. Anything you guys need for Jirasan, I have the answer to. If I don't have the answer, I know where to go to find it. Any opportunities that you guys want Jirasan to dive into, bring it to my table. I'm the one that has to go connect with those individuals that we want to open up these opportunities with, that I have to dive into. Any ideas, any thoughts that you guys have, um, something you guys don't like, something you guys like to see more of, you bring it to me. When it comes to treasury, our runway is okay. We had conversations with Sean in the Sama chat that He was worried that our runway was going to end. I've had all the conversations I've needed to have, and we no longer have that worry. Okay. Our current team is going to build what we feel is the best environment and the gives us the best opportunity to network for our holders to create bigger opportunities, okay, for our investors and for you guys to grow in Web3, to grow your fucking pockets, all right? And in order for us to get there, I'm taking the fucking lead on everything. The team knows this from our community team that consists of myself, Groot, Bullish, Wing, and Vischa. That is my community team. We are covered. Our runway is covered. We have no issues with that. We are head down in the sand, looking to build the proper environment that we feel will give everybody in our community, our Jirasan holders, every opportunity that they can to tackle networking, which we believe is what leads to everything else. There are no teams that we started with that were under the previous vision of RDAC that are around anymore. Think of that. One of those products made multi-million dollars in revenue. They're no longer around. Why? Because when you base your community off the hopes of making everybody money, every time you make them $10, tomorrow they're asking you for 20. And that's just the fucking reality of it. And for me, if I'm going to spend my time in Web3, I understand that in order for those opportunities to come up, you need to build your network. And that's what we're working on. So in the next year, I want you guys to judge me on two things. Did we earn the trust of our peers in Web3? Okay, take that for what it is. And did we earn the respect back from our holders? Those are the two things that I want you guys to judge me off on the next 12 months. Other than that, you guys, I appreciate you guys taking the time, jumping in to listen. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to the recording at some point whenever you hear this. Other than that, for today, you guys, I want to say thank you. Thank you to the guys that pulled up. Always love. And on that note, I will let you guys go. Enjoy your Sunday. Anything you guys need to know, hit me up. I will speak with you guys next week on some other things for our next AMA on the Lair, 6 a.m. EST time. Till then, ciao. Everybody have a great week.